I'm Anthony Geathers.
And I'm Gregg Weiss.
And we are the hosts of Case for Bass.
Hello, everybody. I'm James Alvin Harrison, and I'm an artist bass player, and I'm quite honored to be a featured guest here on Case for Bass.
We're continuing on a theme of Alvin Harrison, and Alvin Harrison is a marketress. I still can't get this word. He's an expert at marquetry, and he makes the most outstanding custom basses with his three-dimensional effect of, he makes what are called snake basses. And we're going to have an inside look, an exclusive preview of what Alvin is doing and how he makes these items, both unique and exciting. And I'm going to pass it back to Anthony so he can begin with Al.
So, Alvin, let's talk about the idea. What motivated you to make custom basses? And just let's go into the details about that, because your basses are super, 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 super unique. They really need to be in the market, and we got to get you to kind of start thinking in that direction at this point.
Oh, thank you. I was inspired by a bass that I saw, Brothers Johnson, one of the bass players of the Brothers Johnson.
Louis Johnson, yes.
Yeah, it was either the bass or his guitar or the guitar player.
Okay.
You know, and it was all cut out the way it was, and that was the first time I saw something like that that really blew me away. So I'm like, wow, I got to make my basses, with that kind of feel, not copying his, but getting sort of the same kind of, influence,
Okay.
So that's when I started carving my basses. But in reference to me starting to make basses, here living in the area, Virginia, there was a music store that was a few blocks away that I used to go to, and I used to go in and out of there, and I used to go play the regular factory made basses, and I was loving them. And then a lot of times I wasn't even plugging them in. I would just sit there kind of quietly and just sort of plink and thump and do all the little stuff like that. And then one day I decided, what is it about this bass that feels so good, And that was the beginning of me analyzing and breaking down what the instrument was actually consist of. And the first thing I realized was, wait a minute, these are all made out of wood,
Okay.
But, you get so used to seeing them painted and polished and shining and twinkling, you almost stop thinking about what they're made out of,
Okay.
As I did, until, of course, I had to pull myself back and then start really picking them apart as I was sitting there,
Okay.
just looking at them. So, so I combined both the making my own bases from scratch with making them the way I wanted to make them myself instead of
Okay.
just copying what was in the stores.
Got it. Got it.
So that's really where that came from.
Okay. So what year did you build your first bass? Like when you came up with it, well, first and foremost, what made you create the snake concept? Because you're not just taking a standard piece of standard bass or
Right.
a standard piece of wood and saying, well,
Right.
I'm going to cut a standard piece like a Fender P bass or a standard J bass or anything of that nature.
Right.
What made you think in terms of that? Like why the snake bass? Why not a
Yeah.
rabbit bass, cat bass, dog bass?
Well,
Fierce rabbit.
well, anatomically, or I guess you could say biologically, it was a concept that I felt like complemented the neck.
Okay.
But the thing that inspired that was I used to do a lot of wood carving just in general, and I had a class project to do in high school at one period, and I decided to make an Afro pick, and my concept was to make the Afro pick look like it was a snake that was coiled up, and the part that was coiled up was the case, and that case was what protected the prongs from the Afro pick.
Okay, I'm assuming that
Oh,
you
wow.
at some point had an Afro, because
Well-
you and I are both bald now.
Yeah, mine wasn't as good as my brother's. My brother's had the big one. I was always jealous of him, and mine was always the low one that, I just couldn't get it to grow to save me,
Okay.
But anyway,
Okay, can
but
you continue?
what happened was I saw, after I had carved this pick, and I used to walk around with it in my pocket, even when I was working on it. When I got into school to work back to get to working on it again, and one of the students asked to look at it, I noticed that they were hypnotized by it, and it was like, because I remember, how when you go to grab something back from the person, you think they're done looking at it.
Yes.
I went to reach, and I noticed that the person was like, he was still fascinated with it, and I was like, yeah, I took note of that, that it took over him, that it had that effect on him. So I'm like, that kind of stuck with me, and so when it finally came down to me actually trying to fabricate a bass neck, I decided I think I'm gonna make my bass neck a Cobra head, because I've never seen that before, and one thing I like,
I've never seen it before.
yeah,
No, we've never seen it before. No.
yeah, and I feel like, and I know that's mine, that would be my concept, so I figured I enjoy pioneering a lot of stuff anyway, so I figured why not try that, so that's where that came from, from an Afro pick that I made. Again, now that was still my idea of making it an Afro pick. Most of the other picks had, the traditional black handle and, or a fist, and they had the fist coming out of the bottom of the thing, but I didn't want that. I figured, make it something different, so I decided to make that Cobra,
Awesome,
But,
dude.
but
Yeah.
another thing
Were
was
you a snake? Were you a snake enthusiast? Like different breeds, different species. There's all kinds of snakes out there that have very interesting skin patterns.
Right.
And did you start branching out from whether it was the Cobra or I'm not a snake enthusiast myself, but you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, what it was it to me the Cobra seemed like the how you say the king of the forest of snakes, and I felt like it was a powerful image that everybody respected in reference, in the serpent world, and so it made a presence that was kind of like undeniable, a Cobra, versus a rattlesnake or moccasin,
right,
or mouth, those were like regular snakes, and they all
deadly,
look,
but that's impressive.
yeah, exactly.
Deadly, that's impressive.
Yeah. So Cobra, yeah, it stood up and it spread. So
Hence the reason why they call it a king cobra.
yeah,
You know,
and that's one reason why I chose that, because it was King Cobra, you
Yep.
know, and
Yep.
it was like it just dominated your attention. So I'm like, that would be a cool instrument. That'd be a cool bass neck. Is have a
Yeah,
Cobra head.
it's an exciting feature, and I mean, regardless where the headstock just became where the tuning heads were, you
Right,
definitely reimagined
right.
the possibilities of art in the bass, which is fantastic.
I
Yep.
still had to do a little sciencing there because I didn't really want the tuning pegs to dominate the to affect the whole look that much, So my first bass,
It would look like a Franken Cobra
yeah, exactly.
with the bolts coming out of the neck, a Franken Cobra. You're like,
Right. Now the first one, it did look like the first one did look like that, and that first one also had a cut off coat hanger for frets, So talking about
nice.
you know talking about cave, that was a caveman approach, but it worked,
I'm
and
digging it.
you know it bowed like heck because I didn't understand the whole truss rod thing and all that, but it worked, but it was like playing a bow and arrow, but it still worked, and it still looked interesting, but it even once I got done with that, as clumsy as it was, it still got attention from a few local musicians that were, in the circle that I was trying to work in, just getting started, so again, it's like it reinforced the effect that I wanted it to have, So that's like, I think I'm going to kind of keep this style a little bit, eventually I know I was going to change up, but right now this seems to be a kind of like a win-win, how you say,
a win-win.
yeah, symbol, yeah.
Yep.
A win-win approach.
Yep.
Mhm.
Did you take woodworking in high school? Like, what did you learn woodworking from, or did you feel
I
that you were natural at it?
It kind of, sort of, I was more further inspired by the woodworking, and I think the only reason why I took it in the first place was because I was already interested,
Got it.
just out of my own, experimentations and stuff like that. So that just sort of like enhanced, what I was trying to do,
Okay.
So, and I appreciate my shop teachers,
Two questions are: what's your preferred wood of choice, and how do you go about acquiring your stock?
I just went to the local Home Depot. At the time, it was Robbie's hardware store here in the local area. When there was a Robbie's, it was like a local hardware store. My first base was made out of it was a
Make it clear.
3/4 inch birch plywood.
Nice.
The bodies,
Oh wow. Okay.
and then also
Which is now quadrupled in price.
yeah, right, exactly, yeah, the other one was the neck was either the first neck I made was out of oak, and the second neck, as I was sort of expanding in my craft, was out of poplar.
Mm-hmm.
It's like those are the two woods. Now I try to lean more towards the traditional maple necks,
Okay.
type of, like,
Mhm.
as a base thing. The bodies I still sort of experiment. The bodies I enjoy using a variety of different woods, such as oak. I mean, I would get thrown out of the club for that, but I feel like, hey, if they can make this,
I mean, but at some point there's art,
right, exactly.
and I mean, oak is also a harder wood, and
That's why
and it may have advantages, to the types of wood, because I just know from my experience that there's all kinds of woods and there's all kinds of positive and negative repercussions when you
right.
try and manipulate it.
Yeah, I liked it because I like this. I like the density, which I feel like contributed to the sustain. The sound sustain. I also like how it looked visually. And I like that. I felt like it was a tougher wood to work with. It wasn't so vulnerable, so to speak. So so between that and, again, of course, the traditional maple, I would sort of bounce between the two with as far as the bodies. Then I started laminating. I started using adding a little bit of the spalted maple, which a friend got to me. In fact, I got that my first sample pieces from Jan London.
Oh wow!
So,
okay, I love
'cause
Jan.
he
Jan's a great guy.
yeah.
We see, like, because
Yeah,
I know
he is.
up
He
here, like, just for example, my next door neighbor, because I'm in the woods, my next door neighbor is a lumberjack, and he's a stump puller and a firewood dude, and he's got one of those 40-foot ticker trailer. I got old wood all over the place up here, so. I don't know when you're coming back up in the area, but there's a lot of lumber stock available for different, because he has the tree, so he can cut you any thickness, any size. He's got a 35-inch bandsaw blade. He's got all kinds of wicked cool stuff. But the other place I'd mention, you look them up on the web, is it called Condon Lumber, and they're over in Westchester. And they're like another 100-year-old company, but they specialize in exotic woods, and they do custom planing to any thickness. And I mean, they have over 100 varieties of wood because of all these, the market in New York City for whether it's flooring or framing or, whatever art you want to do. There's a lot of that. I figure in Virginia, you just go chop down a tree.
Yeah. I found it. I kind of find I'm having a little difficulty finding maple in Home Depot in the area where I am. I found it when I was in.
It's regional. Here it's all over the place.
Yeah, but over here,
and locally, which I even forgot to say, my neighbor opened up a mill because one down the street closed. So, I think maple is a northeast tree.
Okay.
Is maple good to use for the body as well? I mean, like we're used to the neck, but is it good to use for the body as well?
Yeah. It's like Gregg was saying, it's softer, between that and also there's another wood that's real hard and brittle. It looks like maple, but there you go. That's it. Thank you. So ash is the other one, popular wood, as far as for making bodies. And then there's alder, that's another one.
Right, alder, because they're lighter, Anthony. They have less density. When they used to first made these things, and you want to go big and tough, and you want to be an oak man, like Jimmy. Right. Jimmy, I'm an oak man. Your Uncle Marcellus is an oak man. Are you an oak man, Jimmy? Until you lift it, and then you realize you have back problems.
Yeah. Oh man, my I think it was my second bass, my second Cobra bass. No, the third Cobra bass, which I don't have, and that was one that I threw away, got a lot of years out of it, but one day when I actually took my shirt off and I noticed this discoloration on my shoulder that I never noticed before, and I couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, oh, that's from my bass, It's because it was heavy, and I never paid attention to what it might do to me until I took my shirt off one day years later and saw that discoloration on my shoulder. Wow. And I'm like, that's from my bass strap because my bass is so heavy, Now,
you didn't feel that when you were playing? You were playing live?
I mean, because I guess the adrenaline, and when I made my basses, I guess I was probably making them at a weight that I didn't realize wasn't really
heavy.
I was so wrapped up in.
You weren't optimizing the playability. You went for the, you went for the thickness of the tone. Yeah,
that's all I was thinking about at the time. But I wasn't thinking about my health, and I'm usually hard on myself anyway, as my mom always says, But so I didn't notice that, But then when I noticed it, then I was like. It was kind of like that might be something I might have to start considering, because that's the only time I noticed it. And then I realized immediately that was from my bass. That's because my bass was heavy, So
can you talk a little about finishing and the types of finishes that you use? Like there's that nitrocellular, ultra thin. There are people that use oil. There are people that use acrylics. Can you talk about how you can shape the tone of your instrument by the type and quality of the finish?
I felt like see, I tend to use spray on lacquers, and I use it from the can, and that's only because
Perfectly
I don't have
legit.
yeah, and it works because according to what I learned in looking over the shoulders in some of these books that say, this is how to make an instrument. That was one of the things that was used as an example that you can use spray on lacquer. So I just picked up from there.
Well, yeah, I mean, essentially, it's how it gets applied and
Right.
what you choose to be applied.
Right.
Whether it's a spray can or some kind of gun, it doesn't really matter because it's all in the hand of the artist.
Yeah, I was always wondering about that because I felt like I wanted to graduate to using the gun because I felt like there must have been something to it because I felt like the one thing I wanted my finishes to be hard like epoxy hard or like
it's perfectly legit.
Yeah, because I'm like I said,
there was a lot of people who go for vintage Fender pieces use this stuff called nitrocellular some kind of finish. And I'm not really a guitar guy, but I know they use them on basses, and it's a very, 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 very thin layer applied, and they go up to 10 or 12 layers on these things, to get the high quality. But what happens is, depending upon the chemical makeup of the finish, can affect the brightness of the instrument. Yeah,
that's what I noticed, and I tend to like mine bright only because I feel like. It's probably psychological. I feel like the wood is better protected. It's really sealed in, and it's not going to do a whole lot of moving around because it's now the moisture and everything. It's not going to affect the neck that much.
What I'm saying? Because there's other makers and manufacturers who just rub oil into it.
Yeah.
And that's where you get that feltier, thicker, deeper tones, but there's no brightness there.
Right. Yeah. And I like bright. I like to be able to articulate. I like for my bass to have a top and a bottom, which is what I'm always trying to get at. I like that crisp, crackly top. I like the mids, but I also like the roar of the bottom. But I want it to be something I can articulate, and you can hear. There's no cheating. You can hear every note, even if I play something. You can hear it loud.
Talk about the science.
That also lends for a very hard rock, modern tone. Yes. You're not going for that flat wound sound. You're going for the more modern bass tones.
Well, right. I want you to talk about one thing too.
Okay.
Talk about the science of getting the strings right, getting the pickups right, getting everything lined up so there's not just putting the wood together, but getting it so that you now have a masterpiece, not just visually, but also when you plug it in,
right?
The visuals match the audio. Everything sounds sonically beautiful, and it looks beautiful to look at. Because look, at the end of the day, you grab that bass you grabbed before, because they are pieces of art. So you want it to look you want it to sound as good as it looks.
Right.
So
that's what I wanted. Yeah. Basically, I felt like I kind of copied some of the layouts of other basses to sort of stay in the ballpark, and then I figured I would start my experimenting from there. But I felt like, first of all, let me see if I can get it the way theirs sound. And then after that, then I'll start playing around, which is what I started doing. So a lot for me, it was the choice of pickups, and it was playing around with, moving them, carving the basses so I can insert them in different positions, up or down. And even sometimes I even angled it, or slanted them. Like in my early Shintager bass days, which is this one, I had the pickups at a slant at one point. This bass has gone through many
inceptions.
Yeah, it's gone through some. But this is the bass I was considering my rock bass because it was brighter.
Okay.
So it's like I could just,
move further to your right. just to show more of the head. There we go.
Oh yeah, head stuff. And I also like robotics, so I would include little stuff like that.
Okay. Look
You
at that.
Anything for a gag, you know. Yeah. You know, my rattlesnake bass, you know, when it's not acting up, it does the same thing. This one also has you know, the LEDs. At once I had them red, but then I tried to replace. I had to make them green because that's all I had left.
Okay.
Green-eyed Cobra, you know. So
That is cool, dude.
Get the whole respect here.
You should have them illuminate so they're blinking on and off. I like that.
Yeah.
Look at that.
You know,
That's a cool gag, man.
anything for a goof. You know, I just felt like that kind of stuff was entertaining, and it combined a lot of my interests. I like robotics.
Show the back as well. Show
Oh.
the back because the back has its own thing going.
Las mujeres.
La mujeres.
Yeah, you know.
I like that you're using upright bass instead of an electric bass.
I felt like because this stands out bass. You know, you didn't have to guess what it was. It was like, you know. And I felt like that kind of looked hip when you look at it from like almost a jazz perspective. But everybody knew what a stand-up bass was, you know.
Show the tuning pegs as well.
Oh, yeah.
Bring it. No, not yet. Show it from the back and show it from the front. So come a little closer to the camera. Okay, there we go.
Let me flip it. Makes sense. So it makes sense. You know.
Yep. So look at that.
You know.
Wow. Yep. And I look at the other patterns with it.
Awesome.
That's ridiculous. Now scroll. Now go more to your right, even to your left, and show more the back of the neck. There we go. Look at that. That's crazy, dude.
I love all this. And I even got my mug in there. You can barely see it. That's what I looked at. I said, you can't say that's your bass. My face is on it.
Your face is right there.
You know, it's like, how can you say you bought this from somewhere? You know, so I figured that would keep my bass from getting stolen. So
that is so cool. Put that there again with your face and just keep it frozen. I'm gonna do a screenshot of that really quickly.
Well, let's see if I can. Oh, here you go.
Yeah, right there. Perfect. Let's do a quick screenshot of that. I think that is so bad. Oh man, that is awesome.
It used to stand out a little bit better, you know.
Look, it's called age.
Yeah. Because like this lacquer. Speaking of, again, going back to the lacquer, I only used like the spray can lacquer because I just didn't have a gun. I didn't know how to use it. Don't have a compressor and all that kind of jazz. I got one recently, but I don't know how to use it just yet. And you know, but I'm still trying to refine my methods. I want my stuff to look almost like kind of like that Paul Reed Smith quality, so to speak.
Sure.
You like that glossy finish tone, that factory finish.
Yeah, I like that, but I also like what I call the folk art finish, where it looks closer to like wood that doesn't have so much finish on it, you know. So it's like in between, so to speak.
That's
you
true.
know? So I like the combination of the two. You know, like I said,
I spent a lot of time doing that.
Say again.
What I really enjoy is, well, Paul Reed Smith spent a lot of time and money getting those finishes because some of the models go both ways. They look very rust. Hell, there's tons of clear on that. That, you know, it's like a mirror image. But what I wanted to say was what I really appreciate, and hopefully people take notice of this, is how the concept that Alvin creates from the vision he wants to present and the finished product.
Yeah.
You know, it would be like me trying to draw a snake and Alvin producing one out of a wood carving that literally looks like it's going to bite you. And, we don't have him on because he sucks. You know what I mean? There's a true art finish, and it's definitely an American original. What he's doing between the quality of the bass and the finish of the art. And, you know, from when we were talking before, we don't know where the art literally overtakes the instrument and literally
Right.
becomes its own showpiece. So,
Right.
you know,
Yep.
hands off, and
Speaking
big,
of that,
just amazing.
let's give you a round of applause for what you've got, because
Oh, thank you.
I think we're both
You know
just
what
kind
I
of
mean?
enamored
Yeah.
by what you have there.
Thank you. Thank you.
We're pushing close to 40 interviews, and there is nobody that has pulled out a bass, let alone built by this person we're interviewing, to come up with such a pronounced product.
Applause. So a round
I'm
of
fading
applause
it
there.
out. Oh, I can put it on my phone. Alvin, thank you very much for being on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is a great privilege.